25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this sunny, beautiful, and a little bit cool. A little bit cool now. I don't even know what the temperature is anymore. Thursday morning. Do you know, in doing the job that we do, Robin, it's kind of weird. I mean, it's entertainment, radio is entertainment, but there's also a part of it, we want to make sure we serve a purpose, Yeah. And so we try to look for subjects that people can use and information that will help them in some way. And sometimes the news does that. And back in 2004, it's 11 years ago already, we had two major hurricanes that went through our area. And electricity was down, but we had our generator going, so we could go on the air, and people had battery-powered radios. And it was at that time that we realized, well, after the event, really, that our purpose is easier than we realized, because we always thought, gosh, you really got to work hard. You really got to find some information that is good for the people. And we got so many calls after that just said, you know what, it was so good to have you on the air. And I said, yeah, but we didn't give any information. I mean, we were kind of in the dark like everybody else, you know?
Right.
Because there was, if you remember, I don't know if was the internet up or was it even around? Did we even have it? I don't know, in 2004. But we didn't have much information. And I remember just going on the radio, because we couldn't play any music. Everything was off.
Yes.
The generator was just basically operating the real basics. Anyway, long story short, so I can introduce our guest, we realized from our listeners that our role in their lives is not about us being all-knowing. It's not about us having the advice that you need for right now or the information. It's about us just being there. It's kind of a cool say, oh, okay, our job is a little bit easier than we thought.
Right.
And it's something I really can relate to, because I will listen to the radio. I love listening to radio when I'm not on this side of the microphone. And it's, I don't have to have real useful information. Just, it's kind of fun to get to know the people on the radio.
Yeah.
Dr. Gail Wagnild, I hope I'm saying her name right, is on the phone. She's written an outstanding book. It's called True Resilience, Building a Life of Strength, Courage, and Meaning. It's the meaning part that made me think of that when I was doing the intro. She calls it an interactive guide, and she is a clinically trained psychiatric nurse, social worker, the founder and owner of the Resilience Center in Montana, and she's got her own story as well that I want to make sure she shares with all of us. So, Dr. Gail Wagnild, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you very much. I am having some trouble hearing. I'll do my best.
Oh, okay. Were you able to hear? Where are you, in Montana right now?
Yes.
Can you hear me better now? Did I just improve what you hear?
I can hear you. It's just there's just a lot of noise.
Oh, okay. I hopefully.
But I'll do my best.
Okay, hopefully we can fix that. Tell me when. Well, tell us your story first. You have a story to tell.
Why this book came to be?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, in the book I talk about an experience I had, but in many ways this starts back a little further, because I used to be a nursing professor, and I used to teach courses on aging, and I noticed that everything I taught, I started calling it the dreaded D's, because everything I taught about people getting older, it was about disability and disease and depression and dementia, and I thought, oh my goodness, there's got to be more than this. And so I realized, in my own life, I'm also the granddaughter of homesteaders in Big Sky Country, Montana, and there were so many people who were aging so beautifully, and they were full of joy and optimism and meaning way up into the 100 and older. And so I thought, I started interviewing people. Well, it was right about this time, ironically enough, I was interested in what is it that helps people bounce back and live these positive lives, that I went through my own I suppose, sort of dark, kind of rough patch. I was at a major university. I was getting, preparing for tenure, and my mother and dad came to live with me because we needed to care for him. He was terminally ill, And it was right at that time I had an emergency cesarean section and gave birth to a very premature baby, at which time my husband decided that he'd had enough of all of this and had to abandon. He just couldn't deal with it all. And while I was in the hospital, I lost all my credit cards were stolen, my identity, and so it was a really hard time. And so, but here's the thing: I was interviewing all of these people who had gone through so much worse than I had, and yet they had come out of it so beautifully. And they taught me, just like the book True Resilience does, because this book is full of all this extraordinary wisdom that I got from these people over the years. They taught me that you will get through this, and your life will be better, and it will be rich and rewarding again. And it was wonderful.
And I can see how this will actually save lives. You may never know about that. Well, then maybe you will. Maybe you'll get people who write you, or maybe they have already. But every once in a while there'll be a story about somebody who was thinking about suicide. You know who recently was on? I was watching the singer Sia, the one that did the song Chandelier.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she had a moment like that where she almost killed herself, and then something pulled her out of it. So I think your words will be doing that for some people, and maybe not killing themselves, but maybe committing marital suicide, which is divorce.
Yeah. I look at resilience like this. It's not something you want to just wait until you have a crisis to see if you have resilience, which, a lot of people do. We get many chances every single day to recognize that we are resilient and to practice it. I sort of liken it to resilience as a diamond. And, coal under pressure eventually can produce a diamond.
Right.
And that's really how it is for us. And so we don't have to wait for that crisis. I mean, we all have stress. Life is hard. There's just no way around it. And the better prepared we are, the better off we will be when something truly difficult happens to us.
Sometimes younger people will say that their bad times in life is worse than those in the Depression. Well, no, it's not, because there wasn't anything worse than the Depression. They still have amenities now. They still have things that they can draw on to get themselves out. But the people back then did not. All they had was their wits and their moved forwardness, and that should be a good lesson.
Absolutely, you're right. You're absolutely right. I, in all of these years and in interviewing all of these people, again, these are just pearls of wisdom that the book is full of. And this is not something that I made up or, just created because of what other people have said about resilience. I call this true resilience because this comes from people who are truly resilient, and they have given us, I sort of call this a user's guide to resilience, because these are things that we can learn to do to prepare, no matter what happens to us.
That's the book is called True Resilience. Gail Wagnild is on the phone up in Montana. How's the weather in Montana?
40 degrees. It's not too bad.
Not too bad. That doesn't sound too bad. We need to take a little break, Gail. I wanted to ask you when we come back about, because you are a psychiatric nurse, so you could have information about somebody who is clinically depressed, and if the same principles would apply to somebody going through that as somebody who's not going through that. So we'll take a little break, and we'll be right back with Gail after the weather and a couple of commercial announcements. We'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. It'll be sunny and pleasant today with a high of 65 to 69. And mainly clear tonight with lows in the 40s. Tomorrow, sunshine mixing with some clouds and just a touch warmer in the afternoon, the high 68 to 72. For Saturday, a mix of sun and clouds with a pleasant afternoon, the high 65 to 69. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Are you tired of not using your home's outdoor space for entertaining or relaxation because of all the bugs and leaves? Consider adding a beautiful screen room or glass enclosure. We are Superior Aluminum and Design, a family-owned and operated business with 20 years experience in the aluminum industry, and we are accredited by the Better Business Bureau. If you appreciate superior workmanship, call Superior Aluminum and Design at 817-8058 or visit us on the web at superiораluminumdesign.com.
Looking for something fun and exciting? The Water Circus from Italy is returning to Ocala at the Southeastern Livestock Pavilion on January 30th to February 1st. Because of popular demand, Circus Italia is making extra stops in the area. Even better, they're offering a special discount for our listeners only. At the circus, you can get one free child ticket with every adult ticket if you say Source. For the first time in America, this unique water circus has limited show dates in Ocala for just the weekend of January 30th through February 1st. Daredevils will amaze you with performances on a 35,000-gallon custom water stage. See death-defying stunts, Laser Man, Mermaid, and a Singing Man upside down, all under the white and blue tent by performers from around the world. Plus, after each show, everyone can meet the performers and take pictures with them for free. Circus Italian is finally here at the Southeastern Livestock Pavilion, so bring the family. Look for the big white and blue big top tent. Kids of all ages are welcome. This weekend happening now.
All right, Dr. Gail Wagnild is on the phone. She's the author of the book True Resilience, Building a Life of Strength, Courage, and Meaning. It's an interactive guide. And Doctor, thank you for waiting through the break with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
The one thing I was thinking of during the break is that when we are going through, like you went through, it sounded like a streak of bad things. How's the baby, by the way, now?
How did what do?
The baby, you said you gave premature birth. You didn't.
Oh, my baby is 6'4", and and an engineer. He came out of it great.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. You know, here's what I've always looked at. Okay, I'm 60. Robin is 60. I've looked back at our lives, and I've said many times, like when something looks. It's not like something we should be worried about. I will always say, you know what we've gone through? We've gone through a lot of stuff, and we always come out okay. So I think the reason sometimes we look back and reminisce is because we know the ending. But when we look forward, we worry because we don't know the ending.
That's a really profound point. And it is, before we end our interview today, I really do want to share with you the 5 essential ingredients of resilience, because what you just mentioned is a part of one of those ingredients. And you're right. We as we get older, we can say, I've been through worse than this. I can get through this too.
Yeah. It's not easy, but I think if you just remember it, and I think having a support team too, like friends, family, I think that helps. So tell us the 5 things. Yeah, I don't want to lose out on that either. We will run out of time eventually. What are the 5 things?
There are 5 things, and these are considered essential. What I have learned over the years is that you have to have these 5 things in your life in order to be resilient. They are considered essential, but they are also things that you can learn and you can practice. And that's why the book is called an interactive guide, is because these are things that you can read about, you can talk about them with people that you care about, and you can practice them every day. Okay, the first one. You've got to have purpose and meaning in your life. It is probably the foundation of resilience. People ask, why am I on this earth? It's such an important question to answer. You need to put it into the everyday. Do you have a compelling reason to get out of bed every single morning? It's really, really important.
Yeah, and just going back to what I said in the intro about the hurricane in 2004, it was an eye-opener because we always thought that in order for us to be serving a purpose, I mean, we still do try to bring great topics like the one you're bringing us today, but sometimes it's just about being there. I get the best comments when we goof up, which is kind of kind of crazy. So,
okay, number 2, be authentic. Be comfortable with yourself. Know what your values are. make sure that you don't compromise your values, what is important in your life. Don't cheat yourself. Don't try to live a life someone else wants you to live. One of the best examples of this right now, or in 2014 actually, was a story about a woman. Her name was, she was in the Sudan, and you probably remember reading about her. Her name was Miriam Ibrahim, I think. Mm-hmm. And she was imprisoned for her beliefs and was sentenced to death. And she would not renounce her beliefs. And she was and she gave birth in prison and everything.
Right.
She was eventually released, and I think she's doing fine. But there is an extraordinary example of a woman who would not compromise her beliefs and just stood by them. And the rest of us, most of us, are never going to go through anything like that. But we do go through events every day and during certain times of our lives where we are asked to compromise our beliefs, and that will undermine your resilience. It really will. The third thing is to have a balanced view of your life. That means, as we say in Montana, sit loose in the saddle of life. Life isn't all bad, and life isn't all good. There are lots of ups and downs, and we need to learn ways to calm our mind when we are under stress. And this balanced view of life, this is where a lot of the stress management things come in. You learn to how to relax and meditation and mindfulness, positivity, optimism, and a big one, laugh, have a sense of humor. Nurture that sense of humor every single day. Be sure you laugh every day. The fourth thing is what we call perseverance. Everyone recognizes this as a big piece of resilience, grit. Don't give up. Put one foot in front of the other. It's like the hurricane or the tornadoes we read about or hear about every single year. That if you see pictures of people, picking through the rubble, and they pick out a picture or some memento from their life, right. and they'll stand there in the midst of this destruction, and they'll say, "But we still have each other."
Right.
That's the most important thing. Yep. And they say, "We're going to build back brick by brick," and so they don't give up. They just, we humans really want to just get back up and keep going. And then the very last thing is, say to yourself when you're going through a rough time, just what we were talking about a few minutes ago, I can do this. I have what it takes. I've gotten through difficulties a lot worse than this before. I am confident I can get through this.
Nice.
One of the things in the book that you talk about is probably something we all use: fake it till you make it. We've done that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's I think her name is Amy Cuddy. She's a researcher out of Harvard, and she talks about striking a power pose, and she talks about how that increases your confidence if for just 2 minutes you stand like Superwoman or Superman with your hands on your hips and your feet shoulder length apart, and you breathe and kind of put your chest out, and you fake it till you make it. And sometimes that's what we have to do to build our confidence.
Oh, I love that. And we had this thing where if you're not feeling happy, go ahead and smile. Just force the smile. Just force the smile, because it'll have the result. The result will be as if you really were smiling for real.
Yes, exactly. And there's another researcher. Her name is Barbara Fredrickson. Some of your listeners may have known of her work too. And she says, if you have a negative thought, if you're feeling really negative about something, think about 3 positive things, and it will negate that negative thing. It will neutralize it. Isn't that great?
I believe that. Yeah, I sort of kind of do that.
You also come across as seemingly to be holistic, because so many times people will say, "Oh, I don't feel good. I'm going to take a pill, and that's going to get me out of it." But that's not true.
Mm-hmm. No, sometimes medication is called for. I mean, we don't want to say, don't use medication, because sometimes medication is just what we need. But when I talk about later in the book about the 4 pillars of resilience, they aren't considered essential, but they're very important, and they build and strengthen your resilience. And that is, to take care of all of your health. make sure you're eating, that you're exercising, that you're sleeping. We know how incredibly important those things are. We also know how important it is that you design your life so that it's balanced. You don't play all the time, you don't work all the time. You balance your rest, your responsibility, and so forth. The third pillar that helps to strengthen your resilience is to make sure that that you have we happy few around you, that you know how to find people who support you, but that you also give support back. That there's that reciprocity in your life, that you're seeking and giving support. And then the very last thing that's so important is that even when you're depressed, discouraged, defeated, you just want to quit, you want to shut the door behind you, to not do that, to fight that, to stay fully engaged in your life. Don't retreat, don't withdraw. Don't isolate yourself. Even if you're kind of an introverted person and you prefer, your own company, don't close out the world when things are bad, because it will lead to depression. It will.
Yeah, it certainly will. When you talk about your beliefs, I wanted to go back to that just for a second, because we kind of said it in generic terms, but belief, it doesn't have to be religion, but it can be religion. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, maybe not the doctrine of religion or the theology of religion, but the what do you call it when you get together, the congregation, we're just getting together with other people. Mm-hmm. I think just to kind of remembering something very serious, which is that that you're not alone, that there is a God, all those kinds of things.
Just to chat and be social.
Yeah, I think sometimes that is as important maybe as the doctrine itself, maybe more important.
I don't know the answer to that for sure. People who have a religious faith will say that part of it is that the huge part of it is their belief, and that when they get together, they all reinforce each other and support each other. So I don't know if you can even separate those two very, very easily. But I can say about all of the interviews, and again, the thousands of people that have been in touch with me over the years about resilience, that when I talk about purpose in life, and and not compromising your values and your beliefs, there are many people who are very resilient, because it seems to be hardwired into us. It seems like we're designed with resilience in mind.
Yeah, probably. There
are many people who are not, that do not have a religious or spiritual belief, who are resilient.
Yeah.
So it isn't all based on
right. And I guess in the facing adversity, if you had just to create an illustration here, if you have somebody who believes in God and somebody who doesn't, the person who believes in God facing an adversity might say a prayer and have the strength, because that person believes that God heard the prayer and is going to help them out with this adversity.
Yeah.
The person who doesn't believe in God might not say the prayer, but still might tap into that inner thing that he or she taps into, which is their belief in themselves and their ability to get through the adversity. But either way, they're both tapping into something to do it, to get to the end of the adversity.
And I think, again, to go back to purpose and meaning, people find purpose and meaning in a lot of different places. And I think, for instance, if you, for instance, one of the women I interviewed had her daughter died, a little girl, 3-year-old, died in surgery, and then her mother died a few months later, and then her dad died a few months later than that. Oh. And so just a tough time, and in this profound grief, the question is just how, she says, how do I get up and keep going? Well, here's the thing. She had another child at home under the age of 5, and no matter how difficult it was, she did have to get up because of what she'd been
there
called.
There you go,
yeah.
Gail, Doctor, we're out of time, but let me get from you a website. Do you have a website you can give our listeners?
Yes, the website is one word, resilienceScale.com. And if your listeners go there, they can take the resilience scale for free, takes about 3 minutes, and get a score and an interpretation of your resilience right now.
All right.
ResilienceScale.com.
Okay, ResilienceScale.com. Go on Amazon and all the other bookstores. Get True Resilience by Gail Wagnild, Wagnild. Gail, thank you so much for being on the air with us today. That was great information.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll take a little break. This is WOCA Ocala. We've got news from Fox News. We'll be right back.
Pilot Muad Al-Kasasbeh.
Amman wants proof the pilot is alive, but it hasn't received anything.
Fox Radio's Jessica Gallagher.
Meanwhile, Japan says it has faith Jordan will help Japan free Kenji Goto, who is also being held by ISIS.
The Army psychiatrist